What?
Rook takes a7? Holy
Leaving everything
moly.
hanging to go h7, h8.
I gotta say, these commentary reactions just get better and better. And then this is what they had to say about the game after it had finished.
I would say that's what it looks like when two players play a brilliant game at the same time.
Amazing game. Game of the match so far right there. Unbelievable.
So you're in for a real treat here. This is Gukesh playing with white against another young Indian talent, Sadwhani, and it's the Junior Speed Chess Championship. This is the final, and the winner of this goes through to the main Speed Chess Championship. So Gukesh with white here. This is in the 3 minute section, not 5 minute, just checking the clock times there as I start the moves. And the match is roughly level at this point. So Gukesh opens up. We get knight f6 in response to d4. c4 played, e6, inviting the Nimzo Indian. g3 played though, not committing either one of these knights. And now we get d5 and we go back into this Catalan kind of thing. So bishop b4 check played. Now bishop d2 and the bishop drops back. So what's that all about? Losing a tempo. Well, you've distracted the bishop to this diagonal now, and so you can't bring it to this one as you may like to do in some other lines, and white's going to have to spend a tempo developing that bishop again because otherwise it stands in the way of other pieces. So knight f3 now played, both players castle, we get knight b to d7, queen c2, all pretty standard stuff, c6 played, and now pawn b3. Adding some defense to this pawn on c4 and preparing to develop the knight. So b6 played, preparing to fianchetto. We get knight c3, bishop a6, pressures that pawn. And now Gukesh, all still in his theory, they're blitzing out these moves. He goes pawn to e4 here. So he's giving this pawn on c4 and then he just goes rook fe1. Coming off this diagonal from the bishop's attack, giving a second pawn, which Sadwhani takes. Pawn recaptures, bishop's attacked, it drops back, and here black is a clean pawn up. But I've played these positions a lot myself actually, and e5 is thematic, you kick the knight here, this one goes to e4, looking at g5, and as well as the kingside attacking ideas, well there can also be ideas to just sit on the open files, pressure these pawns and make it really hard for black to actually advance. This bishop's often a bit dead, so you get great pressure for the pawn. So h6 played, covers g5, lots of minor pieces looking to hop there, a knight, and now super aggressive move from Gukesh. I love when he chucks this g-pawn, I've seen it in a few of his games. So bang, here he goes. He wants to rip open Sadwhani's king, right? And this is so instructive. So if you remember nothing from this game, remember this. If you're getting attacked on the flank, then look to counter in the centre. And bang, c5 is just the counter punch that black needs. Does Gukesh pause to deal with anything there? No. Well, he carries on with g5. Great play, best move. And this is often what you see when each side's attacking on a kind of opposite part of the board. Every tempo is key. So we get takes on d4. Again, a great move by Sadwhani, undeterred by this attack, because after captures, this is his plan. He goes g6, he's trying to keep lines closed, and if h7 check, well okay, big deal, king captures, you've given the pawn back. So instead, this knight now hops to g5. Just to briefly mention, the computer's top move here is jumping into d6 to try and force this bishop to give up, give the dark squares, but it still only gives it roughly level. After this move, it now gives black as a bit better. But you can see Gukesh's attacking idea here, because he wants to take on e6, pawn recaptures, and then crash through here with the queen. And so that explains knight to c5. Not only a great square for the knight, but it also covers e6 now in the event of a knight sacrifice. So what if b4? We have to ask that key question. Kicking this knight, the pawn's defended. Well, actually, it's not properly defended. You can capture because after you decoy the bishop, you've left the defense of this one. So this queen and bishop battery picks the piece back up, and black's doing better here. So okay, no b4 on the board. Instead, we get pawn to h4, and now b4 is a threat because this knight is protected. Who knows if one day there's ideas of this as well. But again, Sadwhani, he's just on it with his counterplay, right? So he goes pawn d3, more thematic central counterplay, meeting the flank. The queen jumps to c4, and again, what does Sadwhani do? Pawn b5. Just love this idea of trying to get the white pieces playing on that side of the board away from the attack. Now, it wasn't the computer's top move, although it's not a bad one. You know, the computer wanted pawn a5 or some queen maneuver, something like this. Now, the computer also wants to take this pawn, top move. Who knows what Sadwhani had planned, but it's just the point really that you're distracting the queen away to the side of the board where you're strongest and away from the attack. So what does Gukesh do? Well, he slides the queen to g4. He doesn't want that measly b5 pawn. He wants the king, right? He wants the monarch's head. So knight takes b3 now played. Again, Sadwhani just cracking on with his counterplay. Love it from both players. h5 coming for the throat of the king. The knight captures this bishop, not the rook. You know, it doesn't want to go to the corner. It wants to go here and distract this knight away from supporting the attack. And then you've got problems with this knight. So what does Gukesh do? Well, you can maybe imagine this one, but it's not the shocking move. That one's still to come. So he does not capture the knight on d2. No, he takes the pawn on g6, giving a second minor piece here with check nonetheless, recapturing with this knight, backpedaling, taking a piece out of the attack. Why is he doing all this madness? Well, that king is really now under fire, because if you take here, we'll simply check, king goes, that's mate in 2. And equally, let me make a random move. Well, this is the threat, to check, open the lines, no rook takes or anything, you know, the queen is literally checking the king. After king takes, will you check from this diagonal, stop the king from running away. It comes back, check, same theme, you mate the king. So you cannot let the lines get ripped open to the king. So what do you think is the best defensive move for black to play here? Sadwhani found it, and the commentators called it the unreal defense system after the game. So the move that got played was pawn to f5. There was also bishop f6 as an idea, but this one's the nicest. It's the top move. You just open some lines for the king to run, but also actually just give some space for these pieces to maneuver in defense of the king. Now, en passant was played best move because you don't want to let the lines get completely closed. So by doing this, will you open back up the rook? The knight now has squares to jump to as well. The rook takes back on f6, and now here Gukesh, he plays the wrong move. So technically, not knight d4. Pawn h7 check first. King g7 shows how complicated these lines are, right? Then knight d4. Technically, this was best. Looks like you're going to be hanging a pawn, but this threat of taking with the knight here is too powerful. Anyway, knight c7, knight f4. Computer says still zeros. The most drawn game you've ever seen in your life, right? But okay, the computer always finds this equality in these crazy lines. But Gukesh goes knight e5. Still a really logical looking move. We now see pawn d2 though. Just more excellent thematic central counterplay, forcing this rook away. Now the knight's undefended, so Sadwhani attacks it with his queen. The knight jumps into f7, hits that queen, and now the computer wants to go either queen b6 or c5 here, pressure this pawn, you know, fearless computer, right? Doesn't care about the attack. But Sadwhani goes queen to f4, and it says here, the computer that is, the overlord, the silicon overlord, that you could have captured on f4, knight takes, and this should be leading to a draw after bishop takes on b7. Now I won't keep going and going with the line here, but the material is equal, except black's a pawn up, but we can see there's pressure on the black pawns, you know, these ones are also advanced. Long story short, the computer says it's roughly level, but very complex position. Instead, this is where Gukesh plays this absolutely bonkers move, and we get the commentary reaction I'll show in a moment. In fact, let me show the move with the reaction right now.
What? Rook takes a7?
Leaving everything hanging to go h7, h8.
So why has Gukesh just crashed through on a7? What is that all about? Sorry, I forgot to turn the eval bar on this game. Let me turn it on now. So look at that. Black is completely winning. It's a very logical idea, but not actually a good move. But the idea that Gukesh has got in mind is you cannot take that rook, or else there's this pawn push with check. The king goes, and now you make a queen, that's checkmate. And this is the whole point of decoying the rook away from the back rank. But what Gukesh has overlooked is a really simple tactic for black. I'm very surprised that Gukesh didn't see it, and nor did Sadwhani. Can you find the move for black to win the game on the spot? So the way to go is queen takes on f2 with check. And wherever the king goes to either one of these squares, then you dive back and pick up the rook with the queen. This time, this one still holds the back rank in the event of this pawn push. Simple stuff for guys of this level. But okay, Gukesh got trusted by his opponent here, so to speak. You know, Sadwhani's a bit rattled. He probably could sense it was weird, but couldn't find the response. The time's ticking. He goes rook to c8. It's suddenly a level game again. But you have to go pawn h7 check. So queen takes on f4 played. Sorry, this was also one of the top moves. Knight takes, but now again you have to go h7 check. King g7, bishop takes on b7, similar to the lines that I showed before where the computer gives it roughly level. And if you go rook to c1 here, looking to come onto the back rank, well then you've got the problem of getting mated after takes here. Queen g8 check, king f5, and this is the finishing. Really nice mate. But that's why you can't bring the rook down, you can't leave the back rank. But what we see in the game is rook takes on b7 in the time pressure. But now there's rook takes on g6, and not only is this knight hanging, but so is this bishop. And with no more kind of crazy threats now, because if the pawn ever comes to h7, the king captures, you know, the g pawn is gone. Well, now there is a big threat to go rook c1, you can leave that back rank. So what to do? Well, Gukesh is in dire straits, as you can see by the eval bar. So he takes on e7, low on time, but now rook takes g2 with check, king f1, and rook c1 is almost the final move of the game. Because after h7 check, king takes, we see resignation. It's just hopeless for white. There's nothing. You can't take here, or we recapture, make a queen. The knight is covering this king's escape this way. Obviously, it's protecting the rook here as well. And if you go for some kind of discovered check, well, big deal. This rook can even block. They get exchanged, and then wherever the king runs, you know, this way. Oh, well, it has to run this way to avoid mate. And then you take with check, king goes somewhere, and you'll soon move the rook again, promote the pawn. So, beautiful game by both players, epic battle. Now, although Gukesh lost that one, he did go on to win the match, so congratulations to him, and he's also booked himself a spot in the Speed Chess Championship. If you want to see another epic game of chess, check out the video on screen. Thanks very much for watching, and see you soon.